Guys, I'm going to tell you what, this is way harder than it looks. Way harder. I taped this together because I was afraid it was gonna break. I'm gonna go ahead and glue this together, glue it back together, so it will be drying while I take time to cut these other ones out. These things are so delicate. Woo! My word. Alright, I'm going to cut the rest of this out off camera because this is really tedious. And I'm just going to edit most of this out anyways. Alright, I'm down to the last cut. I have switched blades. I had a number 5 Pegas. This is a number 3. Just because it's a thinner kerf. And I've made a mistake. This is in grain. I should have had the grain going long ways so that the short side was in grain. So these pieces that I'm cutting out are super fragile. I'm going to finish this project, but it's about as structurally sound as a wet bag. I'll just continue on and we'll see what happens. I didn't draw it on here, but I'm going to cut this corner here. Let's see if I can get this out without breaking this last one. All right. Okay, as I mentioned in the while I was scroll cutting these, I should have went with the thicker or the larger basket. These would have been a lot thicker, but you can see here how nasty, and because it's just so thin, you know. So I have dry fit this, and this is harder than it looks. This is like the 3rd time that I've made these slats that go in here to hold this together. So I'm going to assemble this now. So I've got all the other layers here. This of course is the bottom. And then we have the smallest piece, which will go on next. Now the way you cut this thing out, so basically, see there, see I haven't put this back together, but I did have to make a modification to this, and I see why now. I had to cut, in my dry fitting, I had to cut this out. And the reason is when I glued this piece together here, apparently it didn't line up correctly. So This should fit back in here because it was cut out of it. So I feel, yeah, it's out of whack. It's big time out of whack. So that's the bottom. And then what you have to do, all right, let's get back on track here. So this is the bottom, of course. So this will go on next. But see, we have to turn it around. So we flip this one around. The next one goes on there. This one gets flipped around. And then this one goes on top. And then we have the top piece, which will be flipped around, and it goes on like that. So in essence, you have this, which is really cool. I think it's really, really cool. So we have to put these slats in, and they're short slats and then long slats. Now the long slats go from the top, actually from the upper lip all the way down to the bottom here. The shorter ones go from here to underneath the top ring, if you will. So let's put these in. There'll be a short one here. Short one here. And they alternate, as you can see. So we need to put the short ones in first and glue those. And this thing looks pretty wobbly, but trust me, when you get all these pieces in here, this thing will tighten up quite a bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and put all of these in, because that will tighten it up even more. See how these stick up? I knew there had to be something wrong. I didn't get that far off of the pattern when I cut these out, so it just so happens when I glued that back together, I put it too far. It should have been lined up better, but I pushed it too far and that made it out of whack. So I feel better now. All right, so I'm going to glue these short pieces in, and that way we can then put the rim on, because see, it won't go on. You can't get this on here now. You've got to place it on there and then put the long ones back in. But I've got all the long ones in here to help take up all the space, so it's nice and tight. So this is going to be kind of tedious. I don't know how much of this I will actually show. I don't even know if I can, because it's going to kind of be precarious here. I'll tell you what, why don't we... I don't know if this, I might be making a mistake by doing this. Certainly a lot easier to get to, for sure. Now keep in mind that this, you're only going to glue this at the bottom and at the top, and then the long ones are going to be glued on the base and glued on the outside of the top ring. So that's what is going to hold this thing together. Then somehow I got to get glue behind this top piece. And clamp it somehow. All right, this is going to be very tedious, so I'm gonna do this off camera. All right, I've got all of the short ones in. I used the Tight Bond Quick and Thick there, and really needed some more of these suitcase things here. That'd have been really nice. But it's a lot stronger than it was a few minutes ago. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and glue. I have a tape measure that's kind of weighting it down. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this one in. I'm going to put in these two long pieces. I've got some tape here. That I'm going to put on there to kind of hold it tight at the bottom. Because the top, this part, well, can't see. This part's going to glue to the lid, so this part here. But I want to get a couple of these glued in so that it'll be a little more stable. Just letting this dry a little bit. So see how these come up through on the inside? So I'm just using blue tape to hold everything into place. This thing's a lot stiffer now that we've got some of these pieces glued on. Yeah, the tape works out really well. All right, we got 3 more to do here. If you guys have not used this Quick and Thick, this is some good stuff. It's almost like PVA super glue. I mean, you put it on there and it dries pretty quickly. I mean, it has a high tackiness, so it's once you let go of it and it stays. It's not really dry. It's just there for until it dries. So you can kind of place something and know that it's not really going to move around because the glue gets tacky. And it's important that these are vertical as well. Got a few pieces of tape left. Be just right. And this pattern also has handles for this basket too, or a handle. I think there's two versions, a single handle and then a handle on both sides, kind of like a picnic basket. So I didn't cut those out. So I have not sanded this either. I mean, these layers are straight off the saw, but that is amazing at how structurally sound this is now that it's glued together. Also, in Steve Good's pattern, he shows you drill holes, and I saw Luther's Workshop, I believe is his name. He makes a very large version of this, and so I saw him cut in at the angle, and I thought, well, that'd be nice, but this is too thin for that. If I were making one of those large patterns like he was making, or the large version of Steve Good's pattern, I think that would work as well if you came in and just cut the angle. This is so thin, and the blade takes so much material out. Obviously, I glued one of them together in the wrong, made it smaller. Had I thought to place the bottom inside of that and then glue it and tape it up while it was drying, that would have been way better. But yeah, I like this. This is really nice. Like I said, this is my first one. I have seen the bowls that look like they have rods here, and I'll probably do a video on making one of those. And then you have the other design that you cut out and then alternate the stars or the points, and you glue those together, and it gives you an open basket. But this is really cool because it looks like a woven basket to me. It really does. Until you pick it up and you realize, oh, that's just, a solid cut out of a solid piece of wood. So very, very neat concept. And if you do choose to do one of these, I thought I could cut pretty accurate, but softer woods, to me, seem to be harder to cut because the blade does what it wants to. At least the Pegasus blade does, because they are really sharp cutting the wood. Pegasus blades, I cannot recommend them enough. All right, we're going to let this dry a little bit, and then I'll be back with you for closing. And we have a woven basket made out of a flat board. Such a cool way to use scrap wood, or you don't have a whole lot of scrap when you cut something like this out, especially if you size your board to this before and you plan your project ahead. You could take some of your boards that, scrap material, and kind of glue those in a panel and then go from there. So it's really cool. This is a Steve Good pattern. I will link his website down below, his blog, I should say. I don't know if you know this or not, but on the 6th of January, 6th or 7th, Steve Good broke his ankle. And I read on his blog the other day that he was coming home or leaving the hospital on the 23rd of February and was headed to rehab. So keep Steve in your thoughts and prayers. We really appreciate what he does for this community. There's a ton of patterns there, anywhere from beginner stuff to advanced. So check that out if you would. Well, I appreciate you spending time with me in the shop here on episode 17 of Scrolling Through Monday. If you would, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know if you've done something like this before, some sort of basket or a bowl. You've seen the bowl that I've made out a couple weeks ago out of a flat board that's similar to this basket. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. We'll see you next Monday.